Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick on a Martini. Today I'm here with Viggy from Drought. How you doing, Viggy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you coming. I know that you're in LA for Sound and Fury, so I'm sure you're pumped about that.
Yeah, already tired, and we're past. We just finished the pre-show, so it's gonna be a long weekend.
Fair enough. Hopefully we see Drought there in a little bit. I feel
Oh
like that'd
man,
be a pretty good show to
that'd be a
be a part
dream,
of.
honestly.
Just kind of starting now. Could you kind of just give us like the formation of Drought, how you guys came about? You guys are a post-hardcore band from the Bay Area. Just kind of give a little bit about that.
Yeah. So all of us, we grew up in kind of the scene of the like mid 2000s through the early 2010s. And a lot of us had kind of stepped away from music. So like our guitarist Eric was in a band from Sacramento, and then stopped playing in the early 2010s, and then just didn't really pick anything up for like, probably over a decade. My last band had broken up in 2009, maybe something like that. Um, our other guitarist hadn't played in years either. Drummer, he's played like on and off, but this is really his first band where he's like drumming in. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were all I think everyone was like, "Oh man, like I'm spending all this time with myself. Am I spending my time doing what I love?" And he ended up like interrogating a lot of that. And I had this old Craigslist alert for anyone who posts about a couple of bands that I love, right? And one of them is this old Bay Area hardcore band called Comadre, and there was a post that came up that our guitarist Eric had made saying he was looking for bandmates, trying to play like yeah, some like emotional post-hardcore type stuff, along the lines of like Comadre, American Nightmare, you know, uh, Pianos Would Come to Teeth, and it just sort of like hit me. I was like, oh man, I haven't been doing this in so long, and it feels like I've been like walking without a leg or something, or like I don't know, that's actually the wrong way to put it. It's not like losing a limb, but it's like doing stuff without your like soul. And so I think it kind of that kind of brought us together, and then we recorded our we like wrote and recorded our first EP through the end of 2022 into 2023, and then since then it's been crazy because I feel like we just dove headfirst back into music, which has been rad.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you guys first started, you said like 2022. How long was like the recording process for that first EP?
Um, it was we recorded that in a day.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it was like three songs we did in a day. We did some demoing over the weeks prior and stuff, but we're all a little bit like anal. Like we were like, we really want to create a good product. Spent a lot of time kind of thinking about our songwriting, really delving deep. And there are a couple of like, I don't want to say hiccups, but sort of things that sort of informed the record along the way. Our
Hmm.
guitarist RJ had cancer at the end of 2022. He like it was like the kind of thing where I can't remember whether he did chemo before recording or like right after. We like finished and he like went for his like first session. And a lot of the songs were about kind of grappling with that kind of stuff, or like returning to something you love, or um yeah, it's like introspective topics. But the process, yeah, it was pretty quick. We wrote those three songs over the course of a couple of months, and then we didn't know whether this was actually going to become a thing or not. We weren't even sure whether we were going to play shows, and we dropped it in 2023 and ended up getting like a pretty good response from folks. Like, I think like our first couple of shows were awesome. We were able to play with a lot of killer bands, and eventually we were like, oh, this is legit. Let's keep it going.
When you said that you were in other bands, were they always like post-hardcore, hardcore bands, or like were they indie? Like, were you always the vocalist?
I've played bass in one band, but generally I've been a vocalist through the years. I was in a in the 2000s. I was in a new metal band
Okay.
with a DJ and everything. With our and It was actually with my friend Sam Pura, who's a recording engineer. Um, and he's like gone on. He's like recorded like Basement and Story So Far. He just did like the 100th record and stuff.
Mhm.
Brilliant guy. And we were basically in our first band together, and it like taught us a lot. And and then the second band I was in was a very sort of melodic, almost like Circus Survive, somewhere between like Circus Survive and like Jimmy Eat World almost kind of
Okay.
band.
Yeah.
And that one it only I think it only lasted for like 6 months or something like that. And then after that it was just nothing. I'd go to shows, I'd hang out. Um, I probably booked a couple shows here and there, but like it was really just in the past 2, 3 years that I like really like dove headfirst back into this.
So then for Drought, for lack of better terms, was this like one of the first bands that like you guys got like signed to a label, like you're trying to like take it more toward like a touring, or is that's not just for like fun per se?
Yeah, I mean it's still fun. I think like
Yeah, of
all of
course.
us,
Yeah.
I think one of the things for all of us, so like I didn't get a chance to mention it. The other two guitarists, they were in like very different bands too. One of them was in like a post-rock band. The other one was kind of in like a more straight ahead hardcore band.
Hmm.
But we like with this one, I think it's been a little bit of like push and pull. Like we would make something and it would get like a good reception. We I think our first like 3 or 4 shows were sold out, and we were like, wow, like either we have a lot of friends or people like this,
Yeah.
and then like after having 6 shows and 3 songs out, the label reached out and they were like, we really like what you're doing. And honestly, that was we were like, you got to be kidding me, you know?
Yeah.
At that point, we started taking it a little more seriously. So we did a West Coast tour that was an absolute blast. We made some tapes, and then we put out the EP on vinyl. So Iodine put it out on vinyl as a kind of a re-release, um, and it sold out on its first pressing, which like doesn't happen. They said it doesn't happen that much. Um, so I think all along the way, it's been the kind of thing where it's like, let's express ourselves. Like it starts off with like, we want to make sure this is fun. We want to make sure this is sustainable, that we're not burning out. Um, but each time we do something like the reception or like someone, you feel like you're connecting with someone and it's like, wow, all right, like this is maybe we're onto something. And
Hmm.
then we try and dig a little deeper. And the next time it's like, okay, let's do this, or let's do that. And for this year, it's been like festivals, fly dates, which we haven't done before. And then I don't know, like next year, we're like, oh, should we try and like get out of the country? Like there's like stuff that we've been thinking about now that like we probably wouldn't have thought about a year ago. But I think it's really just because people like it, I think. And as long as like people are down to like come and watch us play, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep playing shows. Um, I think like when it comes to music, we'll probably always try and write music because like we love it.
Yeah. What was the feeling like when you have Iodine reach out to you? I mean, that's not like it's a smaller label in the grand scheme of things, but for like post-hardcore, hardcore, like that's one of the labels. What was like kind of like the thought process? Like, damn, like did you have friends that were like in Iodine or was it just kind of out of the blue?
We didn't know anyone at Iodine. So this, it was actually a little bit thanks to Jerome's Dream. We like played with them. They were like, hey, like, you should check this out. And then our guitarist RJ is friends with this guy Tom, who's a designer. He's done like design work for Snapcase and for Killswitch Engage and stuff.
Hmm.
Our guitarist is also a designer. He does all of our artwork and stuff. And Tom goes by Man Alive Creative. Shout out Tom. He kind of sent them our stuff. I think the same week that Jerome's Dream sent it to Iodine. So I think that sort of like caught their attention. But I remember on that first call, all of us, we were like, is this real? Are you sure? Like, I was like, look, I can't like tour 200 days a year. I'm a little bit older than like, like in the scene, we're all like a little bit older than a lot of the other bands. Um, we got jobs, we got family type stuff, all that. And like, and thankfully the label was like, that's chill. It's cool. Like there are other ways to do it. You don't have to just, and I think that comes from the fact that like they've done this long enough. They kind of
Hmm.
know how to help bands get there. And then I think about even their bands, you know, sort of quicksand aside because they're like huge, but like a lot of the bands on the label, whether it's like No Man or Jerome's Dream or Love Letter, they don't they don't tour all the time. I think they're just like really selective, they're thoughtful. And so I think for us that we really took that as like a model. It's like can we make sure that like if we're gonna do something that it's really worth it, that we're gonna like get out in front of as many kids as possible and like I think that the label sort of approach also resonated with us. They're still very DIY and very scrappy. Sometimes they give us like pep talks, like you guys, like, you guys can put on shows however you want. Like like we don't, they're never, they're very much like come out of the DIY ethic. And I think even though, yeah, it's like a business, it's got to do their thing. I get it, but like, I think we respect that. It gives us a lot of freedom.
Yeah. When you said you played Jerome Stream, was that the California Kicks Fest,
No,
or was it
so
prior to that?
it was prior to that. So we played with them. They were doing a tour in 2020, at the end of 2023. And we played with them then. And like I'd been a huge fan. Like my friend Scott used to play guitar for like he was like a touring guitarist for them. And then uh have loved, Sean from Loma and Al and Bonavire's like stuff over the years. But didn't really know them. After we played with them, I'm on the booking team for Cali Kicks, so I like reached out to them and was like, "Hey, like you guys would be perfect for the show."
Yeah.
And of course they were like, "Hell yeah!" And again, like they are also like very much come out of DIY, so they get it. They were down to help us out on a fest that had never been done before, so it was very cool.
How did you get into Cali Kicks? Like, was that kind of just like, is there a group of you guys who are just friends and you guys wanted to always have? I mean, I feel like promoting and like having a festival is like kind of everyone in in the scene's dream in a way. Like, I feel like that's so surreal to actually get it done and like coordinate every band together.
I mean, it's really sweet you say that, but like I don't think it's inaccessible. I think like one of the things like, whoever hears this and the folks that listen in, I think one sort of like really important takeaway for me over the years is that like we make this happen, right? Like a scene is just people. It's like,
Hmm.
some people put on shows, some people make zines, some people photograph, some people make music videos or video content, some people are like archivists, some people make buttons or silk screen. Um, it's kind of like a potluck,
Yeah.
but then even then, a potluck needs hungry people too. Just like people who are just, I showed up and I'm hungry. And that's just like being a fan, right? Like, and so to me, like this is like bring what you can and like you can make it happen. And so for the fest, what had happened was we played a show with Widow Dusk at this sort of anarchist bookstore in Oakland called Tamarack, and the two folks, sort of young femmes who booked it, Violet and Corey, after we played that show, they were like, we really want to do like a screamo and emotional hardcore fest. All the old head bands, we know the young bands. Do you want to work on it? And I was like, yeah, but like I don't feel comfortable doing it on my own, especially since I'd like spent so long like kind of away from the scene. Um, I've got another friend named Chris, who runs a uh sort of booking, I don't like nonprofit co-op. I don't know how to
Like a
describe it, but
promoter kind of deal.
yeah, and he goes by Heavy Lemon, and he promotes
Okay.
shows in the Bay. Um, he used to be in a band called Matsuri, and he was in Windbreaker, and then right now he's in a really great twee pop band called Star 99. But like he and I've known each other for like 23, 24 years. Um, we used to play together in our old bands and stuff, and we were always huge fans of like emotional hardcore. Um, we saw like Blood Brothers together back in the day, like 2003, 4. Um, saw The Locust, went to tons of shows together. And I was like, you're the other person that would really complete this. You really like understand everything from, making sure bands are paid out adequately, how you make sure like keeping things chugging along on schedule. So like it's really the four of us that kind of came together and did it. I think this like if we're gonna do it next year, we are gonna do it next year. We're probably gonna bring a couple more people into the fold just because like it's hard to do everything like every year. And so this is kind of, getting to your question about like how difficult it is and stuff like that. At the end of the day, like anyone that wants to like raise their hand and be like, hey, like I want to be involved, like can drop any of us a line and get involved however they want to. Um, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And so like, I think this group's going to sort of expand a bit. Um, and then we'll see. I don't know. Like I'm really excited to do it again. We've gone 2 years where both times we paid every band. Uh, we made a little bit that we can like reinvest the following year. And it's just like the operations just get cleaner and cleaner. And I think it's that sort of thing. It's like a muscle, right? You build
Hmm.
it and then it can kind of, self-sustain.
Do you feel like like what kind of like the goal for like this next year? Is it like bigger venue, try to get it out to more people? Is there a band that you guys are specifically like hoping to target or?
Man, if so in the Bay Area, like Comadre were like a really important band. I think
Hmm.
they're probably like bigger in principle in the Bay than in other cities. Because like all those guys were like DIY lifers. Like that band, like they used to like show up with their own PA at every show and they'd set up on the floor and they'd play and it was crazy. They used to play with like Touche and Pianos Become the Teeth and like Defeater and all these other bands back in the day. And they broke up in like 2013, 2012, something like that. And their guitarist Jack is a recording engineer. He like actually recorded our LP, which drops next week, and he's also recorded, like Def Heaven, Joyce Manor, Gouge Away, like you name it. Like
Yeah.
he's incredible. But like I would love to book Comadre. Like that's like a band that's like a grail band for all of us.
Yeah.
I think like in some ways that was like the entire reason I was like, let's do this is so I could try and get them to reunite. But then there's like other bands that like, I've known like personally for a while that I would love to book. A lot of it's sort of schedule depending, but God, I would love to have like Soul Glow or like, you like Portrayal of Guilt or something like that. But yeah, we haven't started yet. We have like a little list that we're working off of.
With like saying Kamadra is like one of your guys like inspos for Drought, a lot of times like in like the hardcore scene, post-hardcore scene, like there's a ton of like splits. Would you guys have any interest like would that be like the split that you guys would want to do?
No, I mean, I don't know whether I want to like, I think one thing I think about this often. I don't know. Like sometimes it's like, do you want to do a split with a band that's way bigger than you, or do you want to do a split with a band same size or a band that's like smaller than you that you can like kind of like have some coattails and like help out. So I don't know. Like I think like there's bands that we love and are friends with. There's like Carrion Spring, Oathiel are like from the Inland Empire are like a band that we're super super close to and love. Just a band called Olivia that's out of the Inland Empire as well that we all really love. Um, I think all of those are like bands that we would like be like, yeah, like let's release something with our friends. I think that would be really cool. And then like I personally really like the idea of doing an international split. Uh there's like so like I'm Indian American and there's an incredible uh post-hardcore band in Mumbai called Pacifist that I like sometimes I'm like, oh man, like people don't know what the scene is like in other countries and stuff, and it might be kind of nice to like highlight that and like do a split where it's like a little cross-cultural, like, and that way it's like introducing people to new stuff in both directions. So like
Yeah.
I also think that would be really neat. Instead of just like, I don't know, like I love Comadre, but like at the end of the day, I think like they should do whatever they want to do, and I just want to be able to like see him again.
Fair enough. That's actually a really cool idea though with the cross country split. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. So I feel like that would be super cool, especially like a country like India. I feel like that's not like just like Asia besides Europe, really, and like Japan. I feel like it's not really talked about a lot about the scene. I mean, Australia is becoming a little bit more popular with Speed absolutely killing it recently. But it's cool though that like every country has their own scene in a way, you know?
I was thinking about it 2 days ago or yesterday, because Whispers played the Sound and Fury pre-show, and Whispers are from Bangkok. And one, there's it made me think of like two things. I ran into Ricky, who runs their label with Speed and Scal, and all of them are like Scal isn't on there anymore. But one thing like Ricky's been really great about is like highlighting these bands in other countries, right? Like Speed and Whispers. And so shout out to him. And then like I think shout out to Unite Asia, which is like this website that this dude runs, and it's all just like heavy music out of Asia. And it can be like the weirdest stuff. There's like Kathmandu grindcore, like, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know this existed. And like the thing is, like, you go to those countries. Like, I went to India and actually met the dudes in Pacifist, and I started like talking to them about asking what their scene was like, and there's like, what do you mean scene? Like, it's like anyone who plays heavy music kind of plays together. So sometimes we'll play something and they'll be like noise bands, or like someone else will just be like, oh, I got like an acoustic folk thing, and it just that's just the only way to do it. And like it's really sometimes it's kind of neat because it like reminds you what it was like when you were like a kid and you went to like a battle of the bands, or like something where it's just sort of like I'm just happy to be here, instead of like
Yeah.
this like clout chasing or thinking that everything has to be a certain way. It's like no, like we get to decide what hardcore looks like. And I think that's like the best part of this kind of music and this culture, is that like this isn't something that like you can always throw something out and you can always do it again. You can always like create something new. Yeah, it's rad.
When I mean, obviously, like the main thing coming up for you guys is the new album coming out next week. One thing that really stuck out to me, and I think the reason why I found out about your guys' band is I'm a huge Have Heart fan. So
Mm.
like having Pat on a song, I mean, that's pretty cool. How did you guys go about? I mean, you guys have Infant Island, Pat, Mom Jeans. I mean, that's a pretty like eclectic group of like punk hardcore. Like what kind of went through your guys' mind? First off, just like a lot of bands are super weird about features, I feel like, especially for like opening album. So I guess that's my first question. And then second of all, like how did you guys decide to pick those three out of any of them?
Oh man, that's funny. I think, one thing, we already had the EP out, and the EP was all of us. So like I think we were just like, and then we were also like, oh, like, we get one kind of shot. Like I don't know, like the first time you're like writing an LP, it's like, especially like being a bit older, like it's like, dude, when I was young, I was in bands where like we never put out a second thing. We never like recorded a thing. And so we
Mm,
were like, oh, we get to do it. Let's do it the way we want to. Let's not like, and each of those appearances was like a little bit different. Like Infant Island, Alex actually hit us up and was like, hey, I would love to be on the record. Love what you guys are doing. Would love to be on the record. And I was like, that's awesome. Like I love Alex. And coincidentally, like I had ideas about like, oh, if there was going to be a guest appearance, these are the songs they would be on. Um, and so he ended up on Wayfinding, which is like a song about kind of gender and masculinity and stuff. And Alex is queer himself, and he's like a labor advocate, like really smart, sweet, like really smart person. Currently in grad school in SoCal, and like I was like, you're like the perfect person to like do this with, because like you kind of understand what the subject matter is about. And then Saint, which is a song that we have Eric from Mom Jeans on. So like that one came about because Eric's like Mom Jeans is in our scene, like they're local. Eric came to one of our shows, and then like I think he posted on like Instagram. He's like Drought Loki best Bay Area band, and we were like, what? Like no, like you get what? Like it's so it feels like out of body, And I was like, and I had a song written, and the song's kind of about like it's a little bit about like pop culture and the internet. but it also includes like these emo tropes. Like the idea is like that, now everybody's like always looking to be like remembered. And then like you almost can't like control it. It's like after I die, there's like a million photos of me that are all going to turn into like AI slop that's just going to like regurgitate into like oblivion. And I kind of like wrote the song as like there's like this emo trope of like car crash songs, And so there's like all these bands have songs about car crashes. There's like Armor for Sleep and Thursday and like I don't know, like uh God, like and even I think there's like I think Orchid's got like a epilogue to a car crash. Like there's so many.
Yeah.
And I think our in that song it's kind of like if I die in a car crash, just forget about me. Like it's like I don't need to be remembered in that way. Like I would rather like enjoy my time on Earth, think about it as like cool. Like, I'm doing things right now. Do I need to pull out my phone at a concert? No. Like I can let me enjoy this. I still pull out my phone at concerts, but like still it's
Yeah,
like a
yeah, no,
reminder.
I get the concept. Yeah,
And and so Eric felt like the right person being in Mom Jeans because like Mom Jeans is like a like there's such like a they're like associated with this like sort of like tongue-in-cheek emo stuff and the song's kind of written that way. So it was like,
yeah.
oh, he'd be perfect. And he was like, yeah, dude, absolutely down. And then Pat, that one is an interesting one because we were actually like talking to a different friend of ours about doing a feature on the record, and she like it just didn't work out. Like she's lovely. She's been in like some hardcore bands that we like absolutely adore. But it was just like timing and stuff. And so that feature didn't work out. And we were like, okay, that's fine. I'll put out the record as it is. And then our guitarist Eric was listening to Jeremy Bolm's podcast, and he was interviewing Aaron from Me Without You. And like Me Without You is like one of my favorite bands. Like I like love that band. They were a huge influence on me. And speaking of Philly, they're from Philly, right? Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like you. Um and so in that interview, Jeremy asks Aaron how Jeremy Enoch from Sunny Day Real Estate ended up on the record. And Aaron was like, he'd never met him. They were just like, I think their agent knew him. There's just something where they were like, okay, like let's ask. Worst case scenario, you just get like a no, or like I'm too busy. And it's like, fine. Like we wrote the song's good, hopefully. And I think in our instance, like we had Flora written, and Eric was like, the thing that spurred Eric to like put up that Craigslist ad in the first place was seeing Fiddlehead. And he was like, dude, like this band changed my life. Like he like returned me to music. And like and Pat's always been like there isn't I feel like there isn't always like a ton of like introspective hardcore these days. There's like a lot of sort of like community and this and that, which is like all really important, but sometimes it's like kind of nice to have like hardcore that's also like, I'm having this experience and I'm struggling with it and how can I find community through that? And Pat is so good at like the lyricism on that. And so Eric kind of like talked to our label and there was like some connection. He was like, I'm gonna reach out. And so he like sent an email and Pat responded with like, sounds cool. I don't know if I can make it happen because like people ask me and I would love to, but eventually Jay, who used to be in Defeater, and is now in Love Letter, um, he actually was like, look, like I'm in Massachusetts, I'll go over there and record him and we'll figure it out. And again, it was like also like a very fitting appearance because that song is like about like in some ways like it's about like generational trauma and about like how you leave, like a lot of life is like learning how to like leave the like a metaphor is like you're like a part of a tree or a bush or a plant or and then you like fall away and then you can be part of a whole new bouquet and like live a new life. And like Pat has written a lot about like his relationship with like his family or his past or like all this stuff. And so like it was like a really like perfect like here's like and he sings it his part from like the position of like a mentor. Like, hey, like I've been through this too. It's a little different, but like I think it's important and like it just like really worked out. It was we were I think in all three situations it was like one of those things where we were like I probably wouldn't have, I don't think any of us would have done it if it didn't feel like it fit. Like in each one of those instances, we were like, okay, yeah, this makes the song feel more complete. We love these people. Some of them are like folks that we've known and know, and then like we have, one that like was just really sweet and decided to help us out. And so like
Yeah.
it was really special.
And I feel like Pat's like such a good name to get on a record. And like you said, with kind of like it made sense for him to be on that song. I mean, when I listen to that song, that's probably my favorite out of the three so far. And his voice is like literally perfect for that song. Like I don't like even does like a feature, like it's like absolutely perfect for that song. So I think you guys definitely killed it picking Pat for
Thank
that.
you. And thanks, Pat.
Yeah, right. Is there like a artist that like you guys kind of I don't know, like if I want to say like looked up to, but someone that kind of inspired the album, or did you guys just kind of want to make music that you guys felt like you guys said you guys are kind of doing it at this point for yourself, like you guys want to make music and love it and really be relatable to it. Was there kind of a band, or was it kind of just like you guys like hanging out, writing songs?
It is us hanging out and writing. So I mean, like I think if you asked our guitarist RJ, he'd be like, "Look, man, like nothing for him. He's just like this sounds good. That's the reason I play it. I don't think he listens to music and then thinks I'm gonna make the same thing.
Yeah.
Like he like loves Northeast hardcore. Like Bane is like one of his favorite bands. Like I think Aaron's like one of his heroes, um, and like I think but that's not the kind of stuff he writes for
Hmm.
Drought. And I think
Yeah.
that's just because like that's just not the vibe. It might be at some point, like I would love to have like one breakdown at some point. That would be kind of crazy, but like but that's just not his vibe. But like I think Eric, or other guitarist, he once said he imagines this band as like if Adrian Lanker wrote hardcore songs. And I was like, that's tight. Like to me, like that like kind of speaks to me a bit. Um like for me, like I think I mentioned Me Without You. There's another band that I really love, also a Philly band, but they like broke up years ago, called This Day Forward. Two of the members went on to be in Circus Survive. Another one is now in Poison the Well. Um, but they were awesome. Like their last record was like really like I think they're really pushing what hardcore could sound like. And it's not so much the like there's some stylistic stuff that I 100% rip off like vocally, but like um but I think like stylistically and like musically, I think we just try and do stuff that like we're like, okay, this sounds good. This is kind of interesting. Um, and that in that way, like I don't think there's like any particular like specific artist that we super admire. I think if you ask like a band that like all of us really like everybody in the band, it's Thursday. Like that's the
There's
band that like every single person in the band can agree on.
that's a good pick too. And I feel like that's like for post-hardcore, like that to me is like the one of the bands too. And Jeff's such a great guy, and he and like even all their ties with like the music scene, like they're pretty tied heavy with like My Chemical Romance, and that's one thing also about the scene, especially with like I mean they're from New Jersey, so like the Jersey and New York scene is so close knit for two,
Yeah.
which I think is really sick. So like for like writing then, are you guys, is it mainly RJ or is it kind of a communal effort or
It's a communal effort. I think like guitar work, like usually songs will start off with like a couple of riffs, and it's either Eric or RJ. I think most of the EP was Eric, and then now like I think RJ has like a lot more sort of like not more, but like equal sort of like that they both sort of like split, and they'll be like one person will like write a whole thing, and the other person will like write a different thing, and then it'll kind of like come together. Um, it's varied in terms of like what the processes looked like. Like in Wayfinding, all of the big, really loud riffs were ones that like I think Eric came to us with. And then the like verses and the kind of quieter parts and stuff were all stuff that like I think we wrote while like Eric was out of town. Like we like wrote like RJ was like, what if we just like did one chord and we just like kind of did it really softly? And it sounded great. And and it's super collaborative. Like we did that in the room. And then some of the songs we wrote like asynchronously. We would like use GarageBand and stuff and like share files. Like the songs like that, like Saint was kind of like that. Flora was also kind of like that. Flora is probably like a good mix of the two. Um, like in the room and out. But Saint was almost entirely like we like wrote it like with individual parts and sent it to each other. Same with an invitation. And it's, I think like everybody has input. Like I think all of us want to feel good about the stuff we're like writing. And so someone will like write a part and if someone else like I don't know, like we usually get into this like space of like either the person who like came up with it will be like, no, listen, like hear me out. Like I think the first time I did da 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 in Flora, RJ looked at me and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? Are you serious?" And I was like, "No, hear me out. Like I think this is like I think it just adds something and I don't know why, it like makes sense." Uh and it was one of those moments where he was like, "Okay." And then the guitar part he had and actually all the stuff sort of completely got rewritten at that point because I came in with something that just like changed the direction. So yeah, it's like highly collaborative. Ray he's a drummer, right? Like he can't like I'm not a drummer. I sometimes I'll be like, hey, could you put a fill here? Could we try something like this? But he kind of, mastered the instrument.
Would you be able to talk about for Souvenir, do you guys like kind of like the album cover, how you guys came along with that? Wasn't that I think I saw a post you guys like kind of modeled it, right? Or am I
Yeah. Yeah. So what had happened, we the concept actually came, so I mentioned RJ is like our sort of lead designer. Like he has
Mhm.
like his background's actually like he does graphic design
Okay.
and has done like a ton of design for like big companies and stuff and like um he he had like a vision like actually for the EP he also had like a dream of like he was imagining like a cake with like candles and stuff and then for this he had a vision or like a dream about like a diorama and we were like talking about it like he sent it to everybody. I remember like our drummer Ray was like, you mean like Anxious? I think Anxious has like a record cover that's like a diorama and we were like yeah but like more like hyper realistic like it was like a little bit different than what they were going for. And I have a good friend named Trina. Um, she also like kind of understands like the music world. So she like her partner works at the Flenser and is in a band called Bostanage, who are absolutely awesome. And Trina makes miniatures for a living. And I was like, she'd be the perfect person. Like she like would understand what we're wanting to do. And it, like sometimes when you're like doing it with friends and people who like kind of understand, it doesn't feel like pulling teeth. You don't feel like you're like, ah, can you like do this? We really want it to look like this. If it was like a super organic process. And um, we had like all these like little like Easter eggs that were put in there. There's like one of the pieces in the model is like a photo or there's like a photograph that RJ's taken, a photograph that Eric's taken. There's a record sleeve for an album that like I grew up really loving. A lot of like little like things in there. And that was mainly because like we were able to like hyper collaborate on it. And then we like decided to do this shoot at uh Eric's work. Funny enough, there's like a cobbler that works there, and we had this like sort of workbench, and so we went in there, and the photographer Derek, who did our EP as well, we wanted some kind of unifying sort of themes a little bit, and he like came in and like tried to photograph it and make sure that it was toned very similarly. So it just feels like kind of like we're expanding on the universe. So that's kind of how it came together. I think it's like initially we were like, oh, should it say Drought somewhere or should have it? And then we were like, let's just not. And again, like it's like a debut. We were like we were asking Iodine and they were like,
Yeah.
okay. And same thing even happened with like track lists. Like the title track is track 7. It's not listed on the back of the record. And we were like, let's just skip it. Like it looks better without it. For some reason, it just and it was like sort of a nice, like it's also the title track, like, people figure it out. It's like it's also instrumental. It's like an interlude. So we did a lot of stuff where we were like, oh, let's like take creative license. Let's make this like the version that we really want it to be, even if it's like a little weird or a little crazy. But the inside liner notes are like actually have like RJ's hand inside the model, and it's like the idea is like the concept is like you make home. You make your home. You make your reality. Like it's not home is not a place that's somewhere else. It's like where you are, you have the tools within you to like make that make give yourself like comfort and to set boundaries and to like express your needs and find love and like whatever else that like being a human involves. And like I think we wanted to like convey that idea that it's like, hey, this is something that's yeah, it looks like super real. It's like a home. It's a home, but it's like one that like is made. It's been constructed. Um, and the title Souvenir kind of that came to me as like a lot of the lyrics are about things that you take with you, your experiences, things that you carry. And it's sort of like strangely like fit with the concept of, you made a home. You have this idea of what it is, but that's something you carry with you. It's a souvenir of your entire past, of like everywhere you've been, of like everything you've done. Um, so it's not like a concept record, but it like kind of like hit it like it thematically like created this sort of like vibe that all of us we were like, yeah, like this we feel good about this. It's not, it's not too on the nose. It doesn't feel like we're trying to be like too like pretentious or something. It's like this just made sense.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of also still fitting the theme of like at the end of the day, you guys have to do it for yourselves to enjoy what you're doing. And like
Yeah.
even having those little Easter eggs really like I like someone like I'm gonna go look at it after this and look at it and be like, oh shit, like now I know what you're talking about. But like a common eye, so to speak, like wouldn't pick up on that, but you guys pick up on it, so it makes you guys happy too, which is also one of the whole reasons why you got to do it, you know?
Totally, totally. And then I think there were even other things like I think like RJ put in like a Bane lyric in the liner notes. There's just like a little piece about like, no matter where you are. I actually I admittedly like didn't grow up listening to Bane, so like I don't have a lot of like reference points, but like there's like a line about how there's always like a basement, there's always like a community of people who are gonna scream and yell with you and all that stuff. And it was yeah, like that nails it, like that's something we all like feel, that's something that inspires all of us. And like we want to make sure we're also like paying respect to like all like the scenes that existed before us and all of that.
You guys have a few like shows and kind of festivals booked up for like the rest of the year. You guys are playing one in Florida, right? And then one in Toronto. Have you guys been on the East Coast a ton yet, or?
Not once. So this is going to be the first time's going to be Toronto in 3 weeks. We're playing New Friends Fest with a bunch of bands. On the Might of Princes are playing. I think Snowing is playing. Um, Bon Iver is having their reunion. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Um, and I grew up in Toronto when I was like much younger, so like I'm like really excited to be able to play like my hometown.
Yeah.
Um, and then Florida, we're playing the Fast at Gainesville. Bane, funny enough, is playing that. And so like I'm like super stoked. I know RJ's super stoked for that too. And so yeah, like those two are gonna be our first sort of ventures onto the East Coast. We're hoping to do a tour around Fest. We'll see how it comes together. Like I've been booking it. And then and that'll at least like give us like a little bit of a run. We might come to Philly, so I'll let you know if that
Yeah,
happens.
definitely. I was gonna ask, like, do you guys like, I mean, I feel like if you're gonna do the East Coast, like New York, Philly, Baltimore, I mean, like three of those, like for us, like that's like our scene. And
Yeah.
especially New York, I mean, there's probably hundreds of venues in New York. And that's the cool thing I love about New York is I was talking about it with the guys from, I think it was Defy You.
Mhm.
Like anyone can play in New York and get an audience, and it's not even going to be fans of the scene. Like people just come to come. Like there's just so much
It's
shit to do.
That's
Like,
like my favorite thing. I mean, any place where it's just like, you know what? Like, I'm bored. There's like I can go to a show. Like I do this when I travel like for work and stuff sometimes, and like I love going to shows while I'm traveling. Like even now, like being a Sound and Fury for the weekend is awesome. And they're like a bunch of pre-shows, and you get to see like all kinds of bands and like all kinds of people. And then like the next time like we're like doing a run or we're playing like sometimes like I'll just like I'll make friends with someone and it'll be like, hey, like I'm coming to town. Like, can we play together? Can we do this? And like, that's like it's like the best thing about the scene. Like if you I think the only other scenes that probably feel this way are like underground hip hop or like, but it's like if you were like trying to be like a big like some like I don't know like a lot of kids that like listen to like normie music and stuff, like if they wanted to like everything is made to be inaccessible, whereas like for us it's like it's not like it's actually like the ceiling, I don't, this is the wrong way to put it because I was gonna say the ceiling is low, but it is the kind of thing where it's like you can meet your heroes in this scene. You can like, I remember when I was a kid, I booked a show with like Alexis on Fire, and I was like 17 years old, and it was awesome. Like it was like, oh my God, I get to do this. And then like I ran into Dallas from Alexis on Fire like 2 years ago or something, a year ago. And we ended up like chopping it up about that. And I was like, wow, like this feels really special. Like I feel like really fortunate to be part of something where like no one is too big for their britches. And if you are, like we don't need it, and like and that like everyone feels like kind of accessible and like they're working together. So sorry, that was a little bit of a
No,
tangent.
no, I love that stuff. I love tangents. So go for it. There's two things I want to pick up on that though. Number one, I went to the Pigpen album release party and met Wade McNeil. So that was super cool for me because Alexis on Fire is kind of what got me into, especially like the Canadian scene. Like they were
Yeah.
kind of like the band for me. And meeting Maddie was sick. Like it's cool though. It's like you got a celebrity chef and now he's screaming at a random venue in Queens. Like that's the cool part about the scene. And then two, it was I was talking to Joe Hardcore, which is like the hardcore promoter of Philadelphia in my eyes. And he was saying kind of like similar about like he calls it procore. And I'm ripping off the term now. And I told him I'm ripping it off now. Like the fact that it's supposed to be DIY, it's supposed to be fun. Everyone's supposed to like each other and help each other. And I mean, meeting people, like that's half the scene, like taking pictures with people, like it's not. And he was also saying like it's also like a ticket for like a regular show for a hardcore show shouldn't be more than $50. And if it is, it has some crazy ass like it's a Gorilla Biscuit show, or even then it's not even that much. So it's cool too with like the accessibility. Like that's how you get people into the scene too. It's like, oh, $20 and it's only $5 for a drink. Sure, I'll go. I'll go to the show.
Totally. There was I was thinking about this, like even when we're doing Cali Kicks, like we try and keep it affordable. Like I know some of these fests they can be like $100, like 100. I'm like, dude, like I can't. We figured out like how to like make it work at like 60, $70 for 2 days. I mean, it might go up a little bit because like if we want to get bigger bands, like we need to figure that out. But
And that's
like,
super fair. $70 for 2 days is super fair.
yeah, like I hope so. I
Yeah,
want like
that's
kids,
very
like I want
fair.
kids to feel like, and then like on top of that, it's like we're paying all the bands, right? Like it's like
Hmm.
that's like principally, it's like okay, how do we price it out? And it's like if we make like $1 here, $1 there, like cool, like we're gonna reinvest that like for next year. But like, this isn't intended to be a money-making venture, like if like that, it's not a business. And I think that's kind of like similar to like how bands, especially like there are a lot of friends that we've met like on tour and stuff where like, when we were on tour and we played with Otheel and Quiet Fear, like they were like, oh, we don't need to take a cut. And it's like, no, dude, like you guys can. They're like, no, no, touring bands can have our cut. And then like we did the same when like Respire came through and stuff. And I think there's like a little bit of like, hey, like you guys are on the road and it's going to cost you a little bit more. We're just this for us is a practice. This is like a home where it's a hometown show. And I don't need to get paid for that. Like all I have to do is like drive like 15 minutes, So it's just like a very
Hmm.
different thing. And I think like understanding that and being like making sure we're like supporting each other in that way is just so cool. Cause like, if you're thinking about money first, like then you're never gonna be happy. Like it's like because it's not like, you're not gonna be nice to people. You're not gonna like I think about it like you should ideally, we all should like give more than we receive. Cause like you'll receive something like that's like no
Hmm.
it's true, like when you do nice things for people, people will do nice things for you. That's not like wrong, but like that shouldn't be the reason you do it. Like it's like you do it because it's like, hey, like I've been there too. I know what it's like to be like SOL on something. I know what it's like to play to empty rooms. I know what it's like to like have our van break down or like, have someone bip your car and like steal your gear. Like I know what that's like. And that knowing that it's like, okay, then how do we help each other? How can I make sure that like, hey, I'm like, helping you out when you need it, and all of that. So yeah, I think that's right.
I totally agree. Well, I guess I'll kind of just leave it off with like, what's one thing that you guys at the end of the year, like, what's a goal for Drought going forward?
I think for us, it's let's hopefully we're able to like, get some new fans this year,
Hmm.
meet some new people, tour on the record, try and get like really like I think like make the band more accessible to more people. And I think that's gonna be a big part of it. Like there's something about like when you see a band, when a band comes to your town or to your city, they suddenly become like real to you. Like, oh, I'm not they're not just like a photograph or like a thing on the internet. They are like now like they're people. And I want to like I think there's like something really nice about that. I remember feeling that as a kid, so hopefully we can do that for other kids. So that's
That's
my
a
goal.
that's a great answer. That's a great answer. All right, guys. Thank you so much again, Viggy, for joining. By the time this episode comes out, their debut album will be out. There'll be a ton of links down below of like merch store, tour dates, Instagram. I feel like Instagram is probably the best way to kind of keep up with Drought.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's right now.
then we'll put all that down below. And thanks again for joining. I appreciate it. Again,
Thank
my
you. Really
my name's Nick on the team Martini. See you guys next time.